Sorry.
Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of Crossing the Line with Greg Heym, where our featured guest is the big cheese, the big kahuna, numero uno honcho, boss lady, CEO of Brown Harris Stevens, Bess Freedman. How are you on this beautiful Monday morning, Bess?
I actually feel great, Greg. I'm honored to be here with you because you always make me...
Of course you are. Why wouldn't you be?
Well, you're funny, and you always have good things to say, and I feel good. I can walk and breathe and see, so I'm feeling good. Yep.
All right. Did you have a good weekend?
Great weekend. I was in Washington, Connecticut for the weekend, a little break, little relaxation, some hiking, that kind of stuff. So I came back rejuvenated. And I had my boxing coach this morning. So I'm really on fire.
All right, I'll try not to aggravate you then, because I get enough hits from my mother. I don't need.
Chicky doesn't mess around.
She does not, especially when the vertigo acts up. But anyhow, as our faithful listeners and viewers know, each week here we dig into the latest news in the economy, housing, and other irreverent topics that come up. And this is our 20th episode. You haven't canceled me yet, so that I appreciate that. Thank you.
People love, by the way, your show. People are listening. They think it's great. It's got such good information, and it's funny. It's got everything, and you should be number one everywhere in the world, in my opinion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so 20 episodes, and we always try to find a song that encompasses.
Can't wait to hear this
This is
one.
a number. You know, last week we had our 19th nervous breakdown,
Hey,
which was kind of
19.
fun. Hey, 19. There was also that Vietnam song, 19.
Yes. Oh, that's right. 19,
That actually, 19. I can make a correction here. It wasn't the average age of soldiers that were killed. It was the average age of combat soldiers. I think in World War II was like 26. Shows you how young that war was. But actually, the one that comes to mind is obviously Sergeant Pepper. It was 20 years ago today. So we'll say it was 20 episodes ago today.
There we go. Okay. Nice.
You know, that I started running my mouth on camera as opposed to in sales meetings. But more importantly, today, April 8th, is Solar Eclipse Day, right?
Is it what time? Like 3 o'clock? 3:15?
Yeah, there's a site where you can put in your zip code and it will tell you when.
Remember that song? Is it a solar eclipse of the heart or a total
Eclipse of the Heart.
I was changing it to a solar.
Well,
eclipse.
we do have a relevant song lyric here.
Okay.
You know, Dark Side of the Moon ends with
Floyd.
the line, and everything under the sun is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon. And then you hear this old guy go, there is no dark side of the moon. In fact, it's all dark. It's
very cool.
You know, an album that turned 50 last year.
There we go.
Holds a record for the longest consecutive run in the Billboard charts.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Oh, I think it was over 15 years. I think
Wow.
we're still on. I am the aforementioned Greg Heym, as I always like, because with Besser, you may have forgotten who I am. Chief economist at Brown Harris Stevens and author of The Line, the blog we rip off to do this show, and we just put some funny make-em-ups in there. Welcome to any new listeners and viewers out there. It's always great. And to some of my viewers that are always very vocal, including I got to give a shout out to my cousin and his beautiful wife, Elena, whose twins enjoy the show, and they enjoy
Wow.
the show.
How old are they?
One, they are adorable.
No wonder they love the show.
Well, they're mesmerized by
of your
funny,
voice.
funny bald guy on the screen. But of course, make sure to check out all the great shows on the More Network. And of course, we're here from beautiful and newly painted Studio 1873.
It's really, yep.
Where we have this great decor here, thanks to our friends at the Everset. That's great. And we always have Ray and Lena behind the scenes laughing.
Great.
Lena's got to step up the laughing game a little bit. Ray laughs so much louder.
Yeah.
And of course, trying to be informative, concise, entertaining, and edgy all at the same time.
Hard to do all those, but you managed to somehow.
Well, I send you a bill for each one of those I hit, and you know.
There you go.
If we do hit all four, then you're in trouble. If you have any comments or questions, you can send it to B Freedman. I'm sorry, CTL.
Let me get you Greg's cell number.
CTL@bhsusa.com.
That must stand for crossing the line.
Yes.
You see that?
We're not very,
There we
very
go.
imaginative
There you go.
here.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
So we always start with our line items, and there was one big one last week, and we'll just cut to the chase. We got a employment report for March, which was unbelievably good.
Yeah.
It's one of those reports where you look at it and you say, I can't really say that, it isn't as good as it seems. And so to sum up, 303,000 jobs added, and we were looking for 200,000 jobs. So this totally blew that away. The unemployment rate fell. Now, the employment rate had gone up the month before. So people say, well, maybe this is a trend. It's not. Wages up 0.3% in March and 4.1% higher than a year ago. So wages continue to rise faster than prices, which is good for workers.
Right.
But it's not that, it shows you a lot of this stuff is good for workers and people that have jobs, but not so good for rates and potential for Fed cuts. When wages are rising faster than prices, that can pull prices up. And that's the last thing we want right now. The labor force participation rate, that's the percentage of working age people that are either working or looking for work. The number hasn't gotten back to its pre-COVID level. I don't think you can blame it on COVID anymore or fear of COVID. But that increased to 62.7%. And we'll talk about why that's really important in a minute. Job growth was revised up in January and February by a total of 22,000. And the average work week ticked up to 34.4 hours. So employees making more money, working more hours.
These sounds all very positive.
Right. So, we thought the labor market was maybe starting to soften. Well, not we. I was never sold on it, but a lot of people were saying that.
Yeah.
Not so. In fact, it's surging again.
Right.
It's unbelievable. The gain, the 303,000 jobs was the highest since May of 22. So, this is a big number. And I used to work at BLS a long time ago when you were like this big. People always say, well, books are being cooked. It's a political thing. I never bought any of that. This stuff is taken really seriously, the confidentiality of the data. If they ever wanted to make it up, they wouldn't have to spend so much money collecting all this information. But let's get back to labor force participation rate. One of the things we know, Bess, is that there's been this disconnect because we hear about a slowing labor market, but as of the end of February, the data trails a little bit, there were still almost 9 million available jobs out there, right? And it's funny that you have that when all you hear about is layoffs.
Right.
The Challenger Gray and Christmas, the aptly titled layoff tracker company, keeps talking about, highest number in this month in years. But the good thing about the labor force participation rate increasing means more people will be out there looking for jobs. And that means companies can hire people. But not only that, it'll keep wages from rising too fast. Because as more people are looking for jobs, companies won't have to pay as much to attract workers. So that means we can have a growing labor force without stoking inflation. So that's the best of all possible worlds.
It sounds like we're in a very good environment economically, with jobs, and inflation has been moving downward.
It's moving in the right direction. And there's always a but, because I'm an economist.
I knew that was coming, yes.
The Fed's going to look at this. And they're going to say, see, this is why we're telling you don't expect rate cuts. How are we supposed to cut rates when we're adding over 300,000 jobs in a month? The unemployment rate is under 4%. There's no upside. It's all downside risk to us doing it. And I use this all the time. It's the antibiotic thing.
Right.
If you don't take those 10 days of antibiotics because you feel better in a week, it can come back. And
that's how you think how the Fed is positioning, in the sense that they don't want to do anything to sort of.
They don't want to screw up that poorly twice.
Got it.
They did
in the beginning they did, because they had 11 hikes in such a short period of time.
Well, because they waited too long.
Yeah.
If they'd have read my blog,
or listened to Larry Summers, who was saying the same thing. You guys need to.
I'm more interesting than Larry.
Oh yeah, it's true. You're right about.
He's got a better resume, but come on. It was economics 101. I think the problem too is that people get obsessed with certain economists. They've forgotten about Milton Friedman, who's basically wrote the book on monetary policy and inflation. And when you increase the money supply by 40%, because you're literally, sending checks to people on an almost monthly basis.
It was like a tsunami of cash that came into the economy.
Right. And,
But we did avoid a recession. It seems like we have.
Well, you throw enough cash at anything.
Right.
But the problem is the dangerous part of propping up the money supply is inflation. because then you have to take the money away from people.
Right.
So, if I'm Jerome Powell, and I should actually have that job, but
He's kind of been like a hero of sorts. Some people are very inspired by the fact that even though, yes, he was incorrect in the beginning, I agree, he waited way too long to do something. The fact that we didn't enter a recession and we're in this place in the economy, not perfect. In fact, you and I are going to talk about housing. That's where we're feeling it a bit. It's been slow and challenging, but we did avoid a recession, and Wall Street is happy.
I mean, look, you can pretty much say it looks like the soft landing is going to happen. But
are we in that soft landing now?
Well, there are some economists that are pointing out to certain parts of the labor force data and the jobs data. There's these two surveys, the payroll survey and the household survey, and they're not always moving in sync. But one of the things the household survey is telling us that virtually all of the job gains are part-time workers now. And that's not usually, a great sign for the future from economic growth. Doesn't mean there's a recession happening.
Right.
But, everything always looks calm before the storm,
That's
right?
true.
And everything always looks great with employment data. But, again, hiring is picking up. It's not slowing down. The unemployment rate is going down. It's incredibly low. Jobless claims remain incredibly low. Wage growth is slowing a bit, as is inflation.
Right.
That's good. People are coming back into the labor force.
I love that. That's my favorite data point, is that your people are coming in more. They're spending more time at work.
Well, or getting second jobs. That's another thing
I
that
guess I could
come
account for that.
into play. There's still 8.8 million available jobs out there. So what does that tell us? Two things. Expect a lot of hiring in the coming months, and expect mortgage rates to tick up, because the economy is just too strong right now. And
wait a minute. Did you just say mortgage rates are going to tick up? Because you've been telling me they're going to be going down soon. So
I didn't say. No, I think that people have to remember a couple of things. We're very data sensitive.
Right.
There's a jobs number, CPI comes out, core PCE, all this stuff that we're always talking about every week. But mortgage rates go up and down every week.
Right.
Regardless if the Fed does anything.
Of course.
So there are other things that move these things. And people that keep thinking, well, once the Fed's going to cut rates, it's killing housing. One does not
have anything
go
to
with
mess
the other.
with the other,
In
right.
fact, they can work in polar opposites of each other. So that is the problem. And that is our line item for the week.
Okay.
But now we have to take a pause for this very special message, Bess.
I can't wait.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
And we're back. As you can tell, we've been joking during our break here. So we've talked about the latest on the economy and what it may mean for mortgage rates. And let's go to the housing market. It's been a rough go for a while now for various reasons. We have two big problems in the U.S. We don't have enough homes for sale, right? And rates skyrocket.
That's right.
So we are in 4 states, and we have markets that behave vastly different. We're a little different here in New York City, but let's just talk about the U.S. first, and we certainly see it in the areas we're in, the Fairfield County area, New Jersey.
No inventory. There's no inventory. But that's been a challenge because the rates, as you just talked about, people who have homes don't want to list them because they don't want to give up a 2 or 3%. And buyers have been waiting to see what's going to happen with rates. And so all of that has created a bit of a boondoggle, a slowdown.
It's a word that doesn't get used enough. And it's hard. We've seen there's been a pickup in permits and housing starts, but it's a game of catch up. And this is something that has happened. I've seen here in the 32 years I've been an economist in New York City, that when you have a recession or you have a pandemic or a financial crisis, everything seems to stop. And then when you come out strong, you don't have enough. It could be anything.
Right.
You don't have enough new homes. Even we see it with the commercial market, and that's a different story post-COVID. But we're always playing catch-up, and by the time you get there, it's another recession, and then the cycle.
Well, the
seems to
other
repeat
thing
itself.
is, though, Greg, that money was so cheap for so long. Those rates have
I know,
been.
wasn't that a great time?
It was a great time. Everybody, so I think we sort of got very spoiled, and now things have shifted. And so the market, as I always say, has become more of a disciplinarian.
But I hear from a lot of our agents that people are starting to accept the new normal.
Yeah.
And they don't like it, but
It is what it is. You have to be in acceptance. You can't resist. This is what it is. And it will probably be around 5 or 6% for the next who knows how long.
well, we have to remember, and I joke about it probably too often, but the first edition of the blog I did in July of 2020, the lead story was mortgage rates dipped below 3% for the first time. That had never happened before, so we can't expect it to happen again. Like us Ranger fans waited 54 years for a Stanley Cup, and it's 30 years later, it hasn't happened again. Yeah. So, you guys, although it will happen this year, we look great. But I think
it will happen this year.
Why not? We're the best team in the NHL
right
now, and Igor looks great. And
wasn't there a fist fight or something last week with the?
They dropped the puck against the Devils, and within 2 seconds, 5 fights.
I saw
out.
something on the news.
8 people were ejected 2 seconds into the game.
Oh my God!
It was an elbow that a Ranger rookie threw that was dirty, and these things are all arranged.
All right, so they could still. All right, that happens.
No, that's fine.
It happens in hockey.
Part of hockey, and a lot of people say it's better to have people have fair fights than to give dirty shots. But anyway, so if people are starting, and I think one of the things people have this misconception, it's rates have always been that low, and we remind people over the last half century, the average mortgage rate is about 7.8%.
That's right.
So, and we had this housing bubble in 2006 when I bought my house and I got a 6.5% rate, and I was happy with that rate.
Because
I was a lot happier when I cut it in half. But that conditions change over time, right? You've been in this business a while.
Right, of course. And so, but if you've been in the business for 10 years, this is new for you if you've been a real estate professional. And so you have to juggle sort of the expectations of your buyers and your sellers.
And that we are in the information business.
That's what we're information and service. So you have to educate, right?
Thankfully, that helps me stay employed because I have some of that information. I don't give you all of it. So the spring market so far has kind of been
a little meh.
Here in New York, particularly in Manhattan, it was not great.
No, it's mediocre plus. It's not horrible. It seems to be picking up, but very slowly.
Well, I think people they have a lot on their minds. I think, and I don't know. I love your opinion on this. A lot of people point to the presidential election as a reason. I don't buy that people
think so.
Call you up and say, Bess, I'm not buying that house because my person didn't win.
No, I don't. I agree with you on that. I think people are distracted by so many things, though. I think
wars.
I think the 2 wars are a big thing. And I think, there's just a lot of chaos and noise in the world with news. Every time you turn the TV on, it's something. And it's
we even
distracting.
have Cookie Monster on Twitter, as you, our loyal viewers and readers will.
Is that true?
Listeners. Yeah, this whole idea of shrinkflation. So Sesame Street jumped in, and Cookie Monster said, "Me hates shrinkflation." Less cookies.
I used to love that Cookie Monster.
If you're addicted to something and now you're buying it and you're getting less of it, you're really going to be ticked off.
You're going to be really upset.
And the Biden administration, to their credit, jumped in the ad. It's like, wow, you don't get better publicity than Cookie Monster.
Cookie Monster is pretty much it.
And my whole joke was I thought he would have been most upset when they were going to make him the Veggie Monster. But,
Come on. It's nothing like a cookie.
I
got to have a chocolate chip cookie.
That's what I'm saying. Why don't we, do we have money in the budget for cookies?
I'm going to get
here?
cookies for us after this, I promise you.
I appreciate
But
it.
I back to your point, I think, yes, it's an election year and that can be distracting, but I don't think people are... I don't think it's stopping people from buying or selling. I just don't think so.
And I think, as we always say, it's a long-term thing. I'm supposed to be this brilliant real estate economist, I guess. I bought my house in 2006. I couldn't be happier. I saw it decline in value significantly during the financial crisis. From a national standpoint, home prices had just kind of got back to where they were before the financial crisis, right before COVID hit.
Right.
So there are these cycles, just like there are in stocks. But we do know that home ownership is a more stable.
It's a long-term investment.
yeah.
You're not, unless you're flipping homes. It's for consumption, and it's something that you hold for just years, And so it's usually a very good, probably your best investment.
Well, and you think about the memories you make in a home, whether
right.
it's a rental apartment. I grew up in a rental building.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you don't really notice the difference.
You don't
just want to be
care.
outside
You don't
anyway.
say, Mom, do we own or do we rent? Unless your kid's a real
How's that
estate
mortgage? Did our
agent.
property taxes go up? I always tell my son, who's 16, that.
Wow, Greggy's 16.
He is 16, yeah,
Aye.
and taller than me, and hair down below his shoulders.
Well, he
now.
likes Metallica. It's part of the Metallica.
Metallica's become too soft for him. Now it's all about Pantera.
Oh, yeah.
Anthrax, Slipknot.
Did he ever listen to old school, Ozzy, Black Sabbath?
Yeah, he.
Deep Purple, the old school stuff.
I got him started on some. Not Ozzy. I like Deep Purple a lot.
Yeah.
But I have my older brother Chris was a metalhead, and he
Iron
got
Maiden.
to see Metallica. Before Cliff Burton died, the legendary bass player, and my son is so jealous of that. And he says, "Why can't you be cool like Uncle Chris?" And I always say, "Because I'm your dad. I can't be
Dads
cool."
can't be cool.
But I did take him to see Metallica for his birthday.
I know,
last
you
year,
loved
and
that, didn't you?
It was 90 degrees.
Oh, my God.
And it was 6 hours of metal music.
I mean, he's going through a phase. 16 is he'll start to like other things.
But
too.
I used to tell him all the time as a little kid, because they always say, "I can't wait till I'm an adult." And I go, "Do me and mommy look happy? Do we?"
You're aspiring to this, to bills and stress.
I said,
Good
"I've
for
done
you.
both. I'll trade places."
Yeah,
with
be
you."
a kid and enjoy it.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So I do think as people accept what's going on and realize that. And my good buddy Stephen Lasher at Wells points this out all the time. Remember, you're also getting more money on your savings. We don't like the rates.
That's right.
But when
Money market. Look at what you're doing. You can put some cash, you get 5% on your money. When could you do that?
And the spread is actually more narrow, because when mortgage rates were 3%, you were getting maybe 1/4% on your
Right.
money. Now you could be getting 5.5%, and the mortgage is 1% to 1.5% above that.
Right.
That spread is much better. And look, we've survived some banking issues, so
That's right.
we're very happy about that. And
We've really, that's why I'm saying there's a lot of pluses, not
is.
perfect, but there's a lot of places where we have benefited, and you can feel it.
no, and I look, the stock market keeps it.
It's
It had
crazy.
its worst week of the year last week, but that's okay, because
Considering it's all
it keeps
relative.
setting records.
It's wild, yeah.
All right, so we have a challenging housing market, either because of low inventory or mortgage rates being too high, or both.
Yep.
That will get worked out over time. But we also have the way we do business, and real estate in general has some big changes going on. And we're looking now at the change of the commission system as we know it.
Yep.
We don't know what's going to happen. There's some lawsuits going on, some settlements that have been reached, but not approved yet. We don't want to necessarily get into any of that. But as a CEO of a large real estate firm, how are you sleeping at night with all this? See, now we have the uncertainty.
It's called melatonin.
Not just our buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
We have to think about that too. And you're always thinking about how
The
the market
business.
is. But now
Yeah.
this is some change, and we've had to make some changes here in New York. And so, what do you think of all this? We're not going to guess what's going to happen,
because we don't know, but we do
don't.
know there's a settlement, and we're waiting for NAR's waiting for the federal courts to approve it.
Right.
Most likely will this summer. I think always in crisis there's opportunity, and I think if we change how we do business, how commissions are paid. I'm always voting for more transparency, and I think this could be a good thing. And people who are in this business have to show what their value proposition is. And I think rate agents do that all the time.
Right.
And we may lose some agents who are unable to do that. But luckily for us at Brown Harris Stevens, and I'm not selling my book, we have incredibly talented agents. It's like a graduate school.
Why haven't you written a book yet?
Oh, nobody would want to read my book. But would you?
I'll ghostwrite it for you, because I
We
can
could
dig
do
up
it
all the dirt
together.
on you.
We could do it together.
Bess and Greg.
Bess and
Save
Greg.
the world. Is that?
How would we save the world exactly?
I don't know. I was hoping
I'll
you'd
tell
do
you
that.
how you can help to save the world a little bit. Just like hate is taught, love is taught. And people think love is innate, like you come out of the womb and you're just no love. You learn it at home, just like you learn hate. And we need to do a better job at teaching how to, not to be a hippie, but how to be loving and kind to each other, and teaching that at home and in cultures and everything. It matters greatly.
I'm sure you probably feel this way too. When you grow up in a good family environment, you take that stuff for granted.
Right.
Having a dad and a mom that teach you, I talked about when you interviewed me, how important my dad was to me.
That's right.
And
let him rest in peace.
Yeah, and when you have that example every day, because that's what kids, you could tell them all you want, but when they see you behaving differently, it's not going to resonate. But when you treat people with kindness and respect, it's contagious.
Of course,
really
they
is.
want to emulate whatever you're doing. When they see, it's like when your son Greg sees you do nice things or behave the right way, he may just ignore you, but deep down it's all becoming internalized. And when he gets older, he'll say, my dad, he used to do this or he used to do that.
And
it
also
matters.
he knows what's not okay.
Of course, because you've told him that it's not okay.
And, it's hard. I think some people write things off to, that person's of a different generation, but that can't be an excuse anymore.
I agree 100% with you.
See,
we do have a book.
We do.
Let's work on that later.
It'll be a book people read. It'll only be a couple pages. It'll be like 5 pages on saving the world, and the rest will be on music.
Let's just call it a pamphlet.
So I agree that, for a broker working with a buyer, the job hasn't changed.
That's right.
I think, and we said this, I think on one of the first Crossing the Lines we did, residential real estate does have this image problem, and you've talked about this, that people go on TV, they think they work 5 minutes and they make
It's
millions of
horrible.
dollars in commission.
Those shows, and I get it, they're entertainment, but they absolutely don't represent the best of us at all. It shows them as the center of the universe versus your client, which is what real estate is about. And you look dressy in a fancy car and overdone makeup, and the women are all over-sexualized and the guys are all flakes. And what do you think that the public is going to think when they're on, they're going to be like, oh, these agents say $500,000 on the screen for just like kicking your leg up.
It's like those home flipping shows.
Yeah.
In 30 minutes, they make $80,000.
Yeah, but people believe that's how, but it's absolutely not. It takes years and you only get paid for results. And it's hard work. And I think that's what I don't like about those shows, because the consumer might think that that's true, and it's absolutely not.
I think we need to do a better job of defining ourselves, because, I've said this before, if you let other people define you, you're just asking to be
100%. If you don't tell your story, someone else will. If you aren't clear about who you are and what you stand for, someone else will fill that in.
I agree. And I think, Rebney has tried to step up in that regard, and I think
they do a good job. Jim Whalen, and Sandia and Reggie, all the people over there work really hard and care about our industry.
So I know everybody's worried when I left there 20 years ago.
Well, I think they're still mourning your loss. It's never been the same.
Most of them are going, Greg, who? It's been 20 years. I think there's 2 people left from when I was there.
Eileen Spinola was there when you were there, right? And Steve.
And Steve. It's hard to believe I was a 25-year-old punk when Mike Slattery hired me. Now I'm a 54-year-old punk working here.
Yeah, but we are the sum of our experiences, right?
Yeah.
All the stuff you've learned since then, right?
I'm just getting better.
Better and better, smarter.
Everything is falling
You're getting
apart.
smarter and smarter.
That means you got to pay me more and more, Bess.
More coinage for Greg. I vote more coin for Greg.
All right, so we also have some governmental issues to think about.
Oh, now the fun stuff.
Well, here in New York City, there's been this effort to cap commissions for the longest time, and I get this goes to the image problem, that they think that people that were working hard with no guarantee for payment don't deserve to be paid.
Well, that's legislators. They don't get it, and they care more about a narrative and like tweeting a slogan to get people interested and intrigued versus actually looking at what makes a difference and what matters.
And looking at what the average broker in New York City
First of all, 62% of real estate agents are women. Many of them are single women who are supporting families. The average real estate agent makes like $45K a year. So the image, like you said, we have an image problem on TV, and the perception of legislators is so off. And if they ever did a little bit of digging deep and read and understood, they would not be trying to pass these sort of ridiculous policies.
I think they even do the same thing with landlords. Not that people are going to be sympathetic, but it's the whole idea of rent regulation. It's like, okay, you can't recapture any of the improvements you make in the buildings, and they're all rich landlords.
But wait a minute, they're not. There are plenty of landlords, immigrants, by the way, who've come here, who bought a building,
right?
And they're trying to make their nut every month, and they're surviving. It's not everybody's like Glenwood.
They're not the monopoly guy with the
exactly. They're not the monopoly guy who owned Park Place. It's just like. So I think, again, perception, I guess, is one thing, but reality is another thing. And I think a lot of people will suffer because of this if they don't get a little bit more educated.
I agree. I think that it's good press.
Yeah.
And it sounds going to go after the evil.
Of course.
You know,
well, everybody wants to point a finger and be like, oh, landlords are bad. Real estate is bad. But
that's like, why should your rent go up?
Yeah.
Well, did you increase the property taxes on that property? You know,
yeah.
Did
you make capital improvements?
Yeah.
I mean, is there inflation? Is gas more expensive? Like everything is people have to pay bills.
Now we have some things being talked about in Albany and
is this good cause?
Well, we'll start with good cause, which is basically universal rent control.
Horrible.
I learned this.
Horrible. Even for demo, there's no clause for like if you demo the building. Like,
I learned this when we were fighting the pied-à-terre tax. People said, well, don't call it the pied-à-terre tax because pied-à-terre means rich people.
It means fancy. People are like, huh? What's a pied-à-terre?
So you call it a homeowner's tax, and then you.
But you and Will went to Albany. Went up to Albany a few times and really helped to turn the tide on that. And I know that the industry, people were very grateful.
You'd be surprised though at how, the whole notion of falling on deaf ears. You know, we made presentations to certain backers of the bill and sponsors,
I know who they were, yeah.
And they basically said, we don't care. We don't care what it's going to do.
Because politics is not
economy.
About the substance.
No.
It's not about the substance. It's about how can I get votes? What's going to matter? What do they want to hear? How am I going to get reelected?
So this goes also to...
Wow, I sound pessimistic. Okay, go ahead.
You've been hanging around economists too long. I get it. We 421A, which is the section of the real property tax law, that's where the name comes from. They've been trying to replace this for a while.
Hochul's been trying to, yeah.
The problem is now they're up to 485X. That's because that's the section of law they're up to. I think the problem is there's always been a misconception about this. 421A started, I believe, in the 70s, and the goal was to foster construction of any housing.
Right.
Didn't matter what it was.
Right, some building, to get building going.
You build more of anything, it should help alleviate price increases if you have more of it. Towards the end of it, it was changed to Affordable New York, and then it was all about building affordable homes, and that's certainly something the city needs. So I think there's this fight that we don't want to subsidize anything that could make somebody money, but
it'll be pencils down if, we want people to build, and they have to have the tax incentives to do so. They're not going to do it just because, and so it has to make economic sense for the people that are actually in the arena doing the work.
Now, almost 30 years ago when I started at Rebney, downtown Manhattan had a 25% vacancy rate. It was rough, and they passed this Lower Manhattan plan, which was 421G.
Yeah,
because everything's a number and a letter in this business.
Of course.
And it gave generous tax incentives to convert old, out-of-date office buildings into hip, downtownish apartments. And the growth in the financial district in that area south of Murray Street has been exponential.
Huge. Yeah.
It used to be a ghost town after 5 o'clock, and now
it's a place where people want to be.
Right. There's two problems. We have a lot of vacant office space now. That situation's probably not going to change greatly for a while.
Unless it's like A space,
right,
high quality.
All of a sudden, Class A space is affordable.
That's right.
And it's, like us here on Park Avenue. It's very nice. But my good buddy Steve Kligerman tells me it'd be hard to convert these buildings in the first place to residential because the floor plans.
The floor plates, HVAC, they just don't flow well for. I talked to Scott Reckler, the CEO of RXR, and we talked a lot about this. It just seems like it would be easy to do, but it's not. And the mayor has this whole committee that's trying to change the zoning so that you can, but it's not as easy as people might think it is to do.
Right, and zoning is a good way for the city to do things because it doesn't necessarily cost any money.
That's right.
They're not giving tax breaks for it. Two more things on the legislative side potentially. The SALT cap. Now I get asked about this all the time,
right?
Because they say, well, if the Democrats get control of everything, will they repeal the cap? And I say no. Because
will they not? You don't think they will?
They had control of everything after the last election, and they didn't do it. I think people forget. First of all, it expires at the end of 2025. So if they do nothing,
right,
everything will revert back.
Okay.
But the problem is that the SALT cap really only applies to New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and California. So even the Democrats, realize that's a small percentage. And one of the things that we found from tax reform is the overwhelming majority of Americans were paying less in taxes. I don't know who ever thought this was a giveaway to the rich, but again, frame it differently.
Right,
And then
it's how you're packaging it and
because the
selling
rich people are the ones that are mad about this because they're the ones with the salt deductions.
Right, I get it.
So
You don't see, your prediction is like it will probably just stat at this point.
I would be surprised because it could have been repealed.
Right, and
they
nobody
had the
did
power
it.
to do it. Nobody did it.
And then in 25, it will just go back to how it was anyway if nobody does anything.
I think they'll do something because one thing we know that people don't like big changes, especially when it comes to tax policy.
Right.
Because for the vast majority of people, they're taking the standard deduction now. It's simpler.
Yeah,
it's
people
giving them a bigger
used to it.
refund in certain cases. So that's good. There's also something here in New York City, and I'm going to have Martha Stark on in a couple of weeks to talk about this. There was a lawsuit by a group called Tax Equity Now New York, or TENY to his friends
yes.
or her friends,
TENY.
about reforming the property tax system. And, I get asked by our brokers a lot. There's also a property tax review commission in the city that has made some recommendations. So we don't have a lot to say on this other than the lawsuit just was allowed to move forward in a reversal of a lower court's decision. So Martha will give us the latest on that.
That's going to be interesting to hear about. She's so smart.
Well, this is over a 40-year-old system that's been band-aided and white-outed and all kinds of weird things you can do.
So you think it does need complete reform?
Well, look, I think that, the lawsuit points out the inequity in the effective tax rates. There are quirks in New York City's property tax system, like limiting assessment increases on 1 to 3 family homes. It sounds like something good, but until you realize what that means to Manhattan and Brooklyn and some other parts of the city where $5 million townhouses are paying taxes as if they were $300,000 townhouses.
So it's not really fair.
There's adjustments that need to be made. I think any tax system should be fair and it should be easy to understand. It shouldn't be a complicated mess.
Well, that's part of the challenge with the tax system is that it's complicated. People don't understand it.
Well, you say the word tax and people go, oh really? Especially this time of year.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to think about it. So I'll be excited to listen to your interview with Martha.
It's gonna be fun. Me and Martha go back a long way, back to my Rebney days.
I know, you guys are buddies.
Well, we talk hoops. She's a big hoops fan.
Well,
let's talk about the national championship game. She's now a Nets fan.
I saw the Nets play. I like the Nets.
Knicks are the hope of
I see the Knicks are doing well, right?
Well, as we call it, the Villanova alumni team, because they have 3 Villanova.
Oh, do they really?
Well, you've got Brunson, Hart, and DiVincenzo, all Villanova people. And I hate that in that I'm a St. John's grad, so I don't like.
Well, women's basketball is apparently a lot of.
Did you watch the game yesterday, the championship game?
Hell to the no. No, I didn't. Sorry.
Well, it's funny because it looked,
I just don't. Not sports are not my thing.
You look at the disparity between the teams, and Iowa looked like kids.
Yeah.
Trying to compete with a team that was so much taller than them. They're getting every rebound, and look, Iowa is built for speed. Caitlin Clark throws up.
She was. I heard that she was incredible, but she lost.
It's just hard. They were just outsized.
It happens, but at least she did a great job.
I think it's great for women's basketball.
It's like a thing now.
That probably would be as big a game
as men's basketball,
as the men's final, which is tonight.
Wait, who's playing tonight?
It is Purdue and UConn.
Or always leaves your text on red. Leaves your text on red.
Built the corporate group with $1,000 loan.
Tell us a little bit about how you actually came from.
Welcome to the build-up, John Rowan.
Thanks for having me.
We're coming to you here from Studio 1873.
It's not 57% over 2.7 million.
So then, cheers. All right, so I promised we talk about music.
Okay, let's talk about the last concert you went to.
The last concert I went to, actually, the last concert of original music I went to was Jason Isbell, and you weren't there.
I couldn't go. I was away that weekend, but I was listening to his music yesterday.
The new album is great.
I think he has a great. He's a great storyteller. If you listen to the words, he has a beautiful voice, and he's been through some stuff, And so anybody who's been through some stuff, in pain, you get incredible
And
stories.
he's going through a divorce now. I didn't know it.
Oh
at
wait,
the
he's going
time.
through a divorce.
He had mentioned about their opening act singing sad songs, and he goes, "I need that at this time," and I didn't realize. Yeah, he just
Another
after
one
10
bites the
years,
dust.
You know what's interesting about Isbell is usually when someone gets kicked out of a band, they don't do as well.
Right.
You talked
But-
about Metallica. You know, Dave Mustaine got famously kicked out of Metallica,
That was
and
it.
formed Megadeth, and it's been a pretty successful band, but
Yeah.
not as successful as Metallica. His old band, Isbell, the Drive-By Truckers, I actually took my son to see them at
Is
the
that
Paramount.
Susan? No.
No.
Who's Susan Tedeschi?
Tedeschi Trucks. is
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a different type of band. Everybody
Yeah.
lumps anybody from the South or any relation to Southern music together, and they
Yeah.
can be vastly different. The Drive-By Truckers are like Alabama, like Muscle Shoals.
Do you
kind of
like
stuff.
them?
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
And
I
Isbell
like-
was in there briefly when he was very young, and they actually kicked him out of the band for his own health because he was going down a
He
dark
was
path.
he was had drug
But we
addiction.
saw them, and it was
so good, right?
No, but the Drive-By Truckers it was a great show. There was hardly anybody there, and then you go to see Isbell in Radio City, and the place is
It's
packed.
packed. He's become quite a people really take to him.
It's that Americana sound.
Yeah, he's got a
It's good.
nice feeling. You know, he's like the boy Taylor Swift, maybe.
I don't think he's going to have that far an appeal. Look, you
I'm
listen to
curious,
a
what's your
song-
feeling about Taylor Swift since we're talking music? Because I don't know her music, to be honest. I'm just owning that.
So I have this argument with my son about music, of course, because
Yeah.
kids, you probably
Yeah.
have similar. And look, Taylor Swift is a force of nature. You can't.
She's an
stop her.
incredible businesswoman, and people love her, and she obviously benefits a lot of people. I get it. I just don't relate to the music.
Well, we're not the target audience. We're
but there's people that are like,
we're the
there's
people
old,
that take the target audience.
No,
to
but
the
I've
show.
talked to people who've gone to the shows who take their kids and they become obsessed
Swifties?
with and I've listened to my daughter who's 21 just never she's like said she just no connection to the music. She respects her but doesn't she's like more like Amy Winehouse, like bluesy kind of stuff, a little more rough and tumble, scrappy.
And I think we all, we both grew up in
Yeah.
the 80s, and, some people gravitated towards punk and new wave. I didn't. I didn't like.
I didn't like punk or new wave.
I was listening to music from the 60s and 70s.
I always liked
and
the
not a lot has
classic
changed
stuff.
since then.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sam Cooke, the classic stuff, that kind of thing.
I love Sam
And I
Cooke.
love rock and roll too. U2, as you know, I saw them at the Sphere opening weekend and they slayed. Just letting you know. I love Bono.
I've never gravitated.
You don't like U2 at all?
I've heard a couple things I like. A
Couple things that you like.
I'm not.
That's rude.
It's like I
Bennett.
tell my son, like, I don't have to like your bands.
Of
like I
course.
don't try to force the
Music
Drive-By
is like
Truckers
food. It's personal. It's like comedy. It's personal. What you like, we don't all have to like the same thing, but I do think music unites people.
Well, parents can't understand too. It's like my mother, in particular, was all about doo-wop, right?
I like
back
doo-wop,
and
too.
Elvis and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I don't love doo-wop, but I love Elvis. I love Buddy Holly. I love Roy
Buddy
Orbison.
Holly too.
I do a lot of Roy Orbison with my partner because he has that high voice and
Yeah,
he can sing.
so he
and
can
people
sing
love
that
it.
stuff.
But I was driving one day with my parents in the car, and "Won't Get Fooled Again" came on, and I blasted it.
The Who.
And she goes, Mom goes, I don't get this music. It's loud, and I thought you liked the Beatles. And I said, the Beatles are the greatest ever, but I don't know they ever wrote a song this good. I think songs that evoke emotion,
Of
some
course.
people
That pull
probably
something
listen
out
to
of you.
Taylor Swift because maybe they've been mistreated by a
Or
boyfriend.
and they feel
as
something.
Taylor
Right. She
has been.
sings a lot about that stuff, but it's like something speaks to you in a song and it touches something in
That's
you.
why people worship Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan, people that tell
Dylan,
stories.
great. Yeah, it's like Michael Jackson. We were talking about Michael Jackson.
Oh, so I saw, we talked about this, the We
Yeah.
Are the World thing. I saw the
you saw
documentary.
the Greatest Night in Pop. How great was that?
The funniest thing I've ever seen
Stevie
is,
Wonder and Ray Charles.
Yeah, Rachel. For those of our viewers that are still watching or listening, Ray Charles has to go to the bathroom. So Stevie Wonder says, "I'll take you,"
and they're
then
both blind. Yes,
And
if you don't
somebody
know.
actually, I forget who it was. It might have been Lionel Richie or somebody said, "It's actually the blind leading the blind."
It's what it was. It was one night. They crammed that song in, but it was. How great was that? And Huey Lewis sang because Prince didn't show up. He got
That's
his
right.
part, and he did I love Huey Lewis, by the way.
He's a guy,
class act.
graduated high school very early, very
Smart.
bright.
Great, and I like his voice. I like the raspiness of it.
He doesn't get. A lot of people don't get love because they were just seen as pop acts.
But he did some good stuff. You had Paul Simon there. You had Diana Ross. You had such a.
And for a brief time, you had Waylon Jennings.
Well, until
there.
he said, "Yeah, I'm not going to say what he said."
No, we don't
he didn't.
curse
He's
on the
like,
show.
"We don't speak Swahili in Texas."
And it's wondering why he was there in the first place.
Yeah.
But I always wonder why Dan Aykroyd was there. I guess because he was buddies.
I
with
always
all the
wonder why
people.
Sheila E. was there, but she was
To
there
get
to try
Prince.
to get
To get
Prince.
Prince.
But she really.
And I don't know if you remember this. Saturday Night Live famously did a bit. I don't know if it was the week later, or where Billy Crystal played Prince singing a song called "I Am Also the World."
No, I didn't see
If you get a
that.
chance, Google it.
You are marvelous.
Now,
I
does
love
Billy
Billy.
Crystal do a good Prince imitation? Absolutely not. But he's sort of
So
a
funny.
small, waifish guy like Prince.
Yeah.
And the concept is funny.
Yeah, but that was a great documentary, right?
It was, and I love musical documentaries.
Me too.
There was one on Isbell, multi-part
I haven't seen
one.
that. Did you see the documentary called Muscle Shoals, which is all about the music there? It's got Leonard Skinner, the making. You got to watch that one. You see?
I didn't, but what did I watch recently?
The Thriller one. You
The
told
Thriller 40. Well, we talked about that, but you mentioned Sam Cooke. Have you watched any of these documentaries
I
that
have
talk
not.
about him? You know, he was shot dead by a hotel clerk.
I
A lot of
know.
people think it was a
me.
setup.
I know. I've heard about
because
that. I
he
never
was
saw the
trying to
documentary.
He formed his own label. He wanted to build sort of an empire and an opportunity for African Americans to break
Oh, is
into
that what
music.
that was about?
And they think that the mob may have done this.
He had such a beautiful voice.
People forget he wrote his songs too.
He was incredible.
And I love to play that music.
Just feels so, the house we live in, so many beautiful, You Send Me, all his music was just incredible.
You know, and
change is going to come.
you can relate to it too. And Cupid or Chain Gang, and you hear that stuff. Another Saturday night, it's just really good.
Yeah, it is.
Wonderful World, not the Louis Armstrong song, the other one.
Yeah, just feels good to listen to. It's feel-good music.
It's just a pleasant voice and just really good lyrics. I think people overlook songs of the 50s and early 60s as being simplistic. Maybe the music wasn't what came in the 70s, but Chuck Berry wrote some of the greatest lyrics ever written.
I love Little Richard too. I loved his voice.
Well, you can hear it. You can hear it in Paul McCartney when he sings, and he was a big Little Richard
Yeah,
guy.
because he was very, very inspirational.
So the last concert I went to was I saw Britt Floyd, the top Pink Floyd tribute band. Phenomenal. They bring the laser lights.
So you're a big Floyd.
Who isn't?
I like some of their. I'm not a big fan of Roger Waters, but not these days.
So I had a brush with Roger Waters. Almost.
Yeah.
I had floor seats for his concert, and our area was roped off during intermission, and I was like, I got to get back to my seat. So I hurry up, duck under the tape. He was coming out to start the second act, and he literally almost bumped right into me. Yeah.
That would have been a good, if you could have gotten a selfie with him, that would have been good.
So they tend to shy away from that.
They don't
sometimes.
like that. They want to be left alone.
Then don't put yourself out there like that.
I know.
I'm the biggest Chicago fan.
I know you love Chicago.
And I was at a concert at Westbury Music Fair, which is like in the round.
Yeah.
So there's no place for the musicians to go backstage when they're not playing. So Bobby Lamb, whom I've met a couple times, and he's not been very nice either time, including one of the times I paid to see him, he actually went to sit in the crowd.
Yeah.
And the person sitting in front of him took out his camera to try to take a picture with Lamb, and Lamb covered his face.
I mean, I get it, but you're right. You put yourself out
Plus,
there.
it's your concert.
It's like you can't be at your concert and be like, yeah, don't talk to me.
I
have a bubble around me.
I once was at Universal waiting for my son to get off a ride, and Liev Schreiber happened to be standing right next to me, holding one of his kids.
Did you say hi?
No, I'm not going to. He's holding one of his kids. I wasn't going to bother him.
I think that's the thing.
That's when you leave them alone. But when you're at their concert and you're paying money to hear them,
you're right.
Chicago's been a touring band for over half a century. I think
they sing that song. Sorry, what's that song that they do?
Hard for me to sing.
Yeah,
it's funny that the band.
Oh,
was
Saturday
dead.
in the Park too.
Yeah, that's a Bobby Lamb classic.
Yeah, see, I like
People
Chicago.
forget how they were very innovative.
Yeah.
There had been some bands that used horns, but had not had that level of success.
I know you love Chicago. You told me that before.
My money, the greatest American band, and I love the Beach Boys, and I love the Eagles.
I know you love the Beach Boys too. I love the Eagles too.
I mean, there's a lot of good American acts out there.
They're definitely.
And that guy Billy Joel that gets.
I love Billy Joel. I mean, his music, everybody knows it. I like Elton John too a lot.
Well, growing up on Long Island in the '80s, you couldn't avoid
get
Billy
away.
Joel. It'd be like growing up in Jersey and missing Springsteen
or
somehow.
Bon Jovi.
You could have do without.
Oh, you don't like him?
No, I there's a nostalgia when some of the songs come on.
In the beginning, Living on a Prayer, all those songs when they came out, it was a pretty great album.
I was working, at a record store in the '80s, and
I was too. I worked at Record Town.
Sam Goody, much cooler.
Yeah.
But it was fun it's fun to hear some of that. There's always nostalgia for that music. And now that my son's like, oh, man, you grew up the perfect time. You
Yeah.
had the best music, metal. I go, no, the best time for me to grow up would have been the late 60s.
That's right.
When the Beatles were turning out great albums. All the
love the
bands I
Beatles.
love. The Who was in their prime. Floyd
I
was
love the
coming about.
Who. I love the Stones. I like the Beatles. Don't love them. I mean, they're okay. Sorry.
But you
I know
wouldn't-
you love
wouldn't
them.
have
I
all
know.
that
I
other
know.
stuff.
I know. I just, if I had to choose between the Stones or the Beatles, I would pick the Stones.
I think the Stones, there wasn't the same level of growth. You know, they're a great
different-
blues band.
Yeah.
And I love the Stones. It's funny, I asked my son, because they're coming around now, I said, do you want to see them? This could be your only chance. And he's like, no, I'm all right. So he's seen McCartney, he's seen The Who,
He likes Metallica and Megadeth
Megadeth. I
and
don't,
Pantera. It's a phase. He's going to move past all that. There's no way that could be your only music as you become like
I
an
don't know,
adult.
the music that I loved at 16, I still love now.
I still
haven't
love it
felt
too, but I have I listen to a lot. I listen to everything.
Well, you know, I think for me, music's always been the thing that's kept me sane. And
Yeah, it's that one thing. It's like on a bad day, whatever's going on, you can like listen to your music and it gives you something. Even if it's something that needs to move emotion in you, to cry, happiness, whatever it is, you feel so much with music if you let yourself.
And I think too, I've been an economist for 32
Yeah.
years. You know, getting something new, the pay is nice. It kind of indicates what you're doing. Like you, all of a sudden, the money you've spent on guitars that you probably never get back, even with the gigs. But you can say, well, I'm a real musician. I work
It's
a
what
couple
you
times
love.
a month.
You
and
work and you love
and
it.
it uses different parts of my brain. You know, improvising, whether it's jazz or rock. Or
It gives
whatever.
you more. You have purpose as an economist, but also it gives you other purpose, creative purpose. Right?
Plus, we do a Partridge Family thing. We do gigs
boy.
where my wife and son will sit in with me. And
Really?
And the three of us will.
I'd
will
love to
do
see
some-
a little video of that if I could. Please share with the group.
We have video of
Okay,
that.
please do.
It's been fun. And then every year in July, my brother in Texas comes with his family, and my niece, who is making her confirmation, I have to fly out there in June.
That's right. You told me
My
about
goddaughter. She studies opera, and I told her stop that. And
that.
no one
Opera's
wants to hear
beautiful
opera.
too, though.
Paul McCartney said the best comment about opera. He goes, all these old people would come to me and say, I can't understand what you're saying, right? That's what old
Yeah.
people always say about rock and roll. And he goes, these are the people like opera, which isn't even in English. But she comes every year and she sings, and
Yeah.
she's phenomenal.
I'm sure she has a beautiful voice.
It's unbelievable, and it's fun. Now her little brother and little sister are getting involved. And of course, they steal the show because they're cuter.
Yeah, that always happens.
And I'm just Uncle Greg.
Greggy, Uncle Greggy.
I'm the
I'd say.
accompanist.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, we got to get you playing an instrument.
No, you don't. Definitely don't want that.
Now your daughter,
I play
daughter is very musical.
My daughter plays
I've seen videos.
piano, guitar. She sings. She writes music. She's super. She doesn't allow me to sing in the car. She goes, nope. As soon as I start to sing, I get nope. My son, who's 18, lets me sing and rap, by the way.
All right, you want to? We got.
I'm not
going
going to rap here because I don't want to show off too much, but yeah. But you have an 18-year-old who listens to like almost only hip hop, then you like know all the latest of
It's
everything.
funny you talk about Taylor Swift as a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Kanye West, who's tried to do everything he can
Yeah.
to make himself unpopular.
He's
Everything
incredibly
he
talented.
puts out.
I love him. I love his music. As a person, whatever, you have to separate the art from the artist, which I do. I don't ask everybody to do that, but I love his music. I've been a big listener of his music. I think he's incredibly talented. All the other stuff, that's personal. Am I going to hang out with him or invite him to my mahjong game? Probably not.
You don't invite me to your mahjong.
So, but it's art. I'm looking at the art. It's like anything.
If you dig deep enough in any celebrity's past, you're going to find horrific
The
things.
dream is always better than the reality, right? So hold them like far away. I don't need to hang out with them. I like to listen to the music.
Look, Ron Guidry is still my idol, but
Yeah. I'm sure he might not
and
have been the
seems like a
nicest person.
He seems like to be a nice guy, but I wanted to throw a slider. He was a left-handed pitcher.
Yeah.
And a Yankee. I wanted to be all those things. Couldn't make it happen. But yeah, do I want to play guitar like Eric Clapton or Albert King or
Jimi
B.B. King?
Hendrix.
I don't want to play like him. But
Hendrix was an incredible guitarist.
I think he's a bit overrated in scope of
Really?
things. I think that his influence.
Gary Moore, I think, was also Gary Moore, one of the best guitarists of all time, in my opinion.
When they had that supergroup, the Traveling Wilburys,
Yeah.
they had the song called "She's My Baby," and I heard this guitar solo, and I go, George Harrison didn't do that, and I don't
was
think
Gary
Jeff
Moore.
Lynne did, and it was Gary Moore. and,
Was incredible.
yeah, and
My brother's
like
favorite.
a lot of rock stars gone too soon.
Yeah.
But for me, I think I've learned that, and I don't think it's selling out. I don't have the jazz chops of the people I play with, particularly my guitar teacher. He's unbelievable. So I play like me because that's what makes me unique.
You should do, and you're learning.
And my style is more direct. My mother claims to like it more.
Your mom likes everything that you do.
Unless it's too loud.
But let me ask you, do you separate the art from the artist?
I do. Look, based on my political beliefs and others, like I have very little in common with most of the music I listen to.
Right.
I think...
But that's not going to stop you from listening to music.
No, I mean, I've watched so many documentaries on musicians and heard such horrific, like we're big Who fans.
Yeah.
There's been some terrible things said about Pete Townsend.
That's right.
Are they
Well,
true?
Michael Jackson.
I don't know. Michael Jackson,
Another one.
Exactly.
Kanye, Roger Waters.
Well, Kanye and Roger Waters have said those things. People haven't said it
it's
about
on
them.
tape, yes. Yeah.
I think with Waters, he has a knack for upsetting people.
Yeah.
Even when he broke up Pink Floyd, he thought that was it. And then when they reformed, he even admitted he made a miscalculation. He's like, I'm playing like a state fair and they're at the football stadium.
There you go.
I think, you can't go by that unless the music itself is containing stuff that you don't agree with.
Right, you're listening to the music for something, for something else, not because, you're necessarily aligned with somebody politically.
Sometimes it comes full circle though, because, Chicago, very liberal act in the late 60s and early 70s when they came out. They wrote songs that now I relate to as a more conservative guy, that, the meaning is the same.
Right.
It's just rebelling against a different
politician
or a different school of thought.
Right.
There's a great song from their fifth album, State of the Union, which I love to listen to because
I don't know that one.
It's good. You should listen to the first couple of Chicago studio albums. They are remarkable pieces of music.
All right.
Very innovative. And the first three albums were all double albums. I don't know that a band had ever had the guts
done that
to try
much.
that.
That's a lot of music to put out, a double album.
They tried to talk the Beatles out of the White Album, and then Paul McCartney said, of course we can release a double album. We're the bleeping Beatles. Like, we can do whatever we want.
If we can't do it, who can?
Well, all right. Well, we're coming up on an hour. We could do this all day.
I could just keep chatting with you. I have so many other topics.
We'll have to have you back on.
I would love to.
We won't talk music. We'll talk about 80s TV shows and movies.
Oh, can we do that one next time?
Of course.
Do you remember what's happening?
It's who could forget Rerun?
Yeah, that's right. Rerun.
Come on. And Dee, the little sister.
Oh, I love Dee and
Raj.
Raj, remember?
Yeah, it was definitely the show to watch.
And the Jeffersons.
Well,
okay, sorry, we're going on
hours. We've already hit 1 hour.
All right, sorry, we're out of here. These guys got to get lunch.
Well, I want to thank
Greg, love hanging out with you. Thank you for
coming by.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm glad we got to chat a little bit. So we think things are picking up. Is that how we're leaving things?
Yeah, I think, look, we have to accept the fact the economy is, you have to look on the bright side. The fact that there are jobs out there and people are working if they want to work and that raises are decent is good. And interest rates will change in time. They always do.
It takes time, though. It's
and for those of you that are waiting for when the Fed's going to cut, remember, it doesn't mean that mortgage rates go down.
That's right. They think it doesn't translate to
mortgage
that.
rates change every week, even when the Fed does nothing.
That's right.
Which they haven't done anything since July. So,
let's wait and see.
We have to remember that things change, and you're making a long-term decision. If someone's selling you stock, they'll tell you, look, you're in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
You don't try to sell it in 6
No,
months.
there are people who do buy stocks and sell.
A lot of people probably rushed to buy Bitcoin too, and I get it. People want to make a lot of money on an investment, but
the home buying process is different. It should be for the long haul.
Yeah, and I think you have to realize that over time, it's hard to find people that will say, I never should have bought that house.
I have yet to meet anybody.
Yeah,
I have people who bought homes and maybe had a divorce, and then that's a little bit different. But it wasn't about the house.
Hits people, but it's never about I hate this place.
No.
Because you realize it, becomes yours. My son, it's the only place he's ever lived.
It's his home, something special.
For now, and then in a little over a year from now, he goes away to college.
He'll be in school. That's right, Greggy. All right. Well,
You want to sign off the show? Go ahead.
All right, everyone. Have a beautiful week. Peace out. Take care. See you later. Shalomi, homie, as I started the show.
And we look forward to crossing the line with you again next
Crossing
week.
the line, which is what Greg does all the time.
And tune in for Martha Stark. She'll be at next week's show, and she's always a great listen or watch. She's a lot of fun. Thanks again.
Toodles.